What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. If you're one of those who have subscribed to our channel, thank you very much for being a part of the Sooner Surge YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed, please go down, click the button, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you'll be notified anytime there's new content. Today, as you know, or maybe you don't know, the game time windows for the remainder of the games have been released for the University of Oklahoma, and we're going to take a look at those right now. And guys, when you look at those, maybe some surprise, but really, I think pretty much what a lot of people thought. A couple of early game time window options, but outside of that, it's going to be more later in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it's first time since 2017 that Oklahoma has two or less early window games. That's great news for all the people that don't like the 11 o'clock kicks. Because now you're looking at only two options, and it could be noon. It's 11 or 12 window for those two games. So that's great news. Looking at the kind of the whole schedule in general, one thing that stands out to me, I think tailgating in Oklahoma for home games are going to be better. And one of the reasons is I think looking at it, you're going to have a lot of time during the day to tailgate for those games. I mean, you got a lot that's in either 2:30, 3:30, or even 5 to 7 window. So that'll give you plenty of time to have a great tailgating experience before the games.
Well, tailgating has to be better. It's just, I mean, there's no excuses at this point. They've expanded it back to, I mean, really the glory days of tailgating. And now you're in the SEC. I mean, that's tailgating is a massive part of that conference. The fans have to do it this year. But yeah, you mentioned only two early window games, those being South Carolina, Ole Miss. Obviously, of those two, only one early window game because it was also announced that OU is kicking off against Maine at 1:30 on ESPN Plus. That was a decision made by OU as they could decide to play that game whenever they wanted.
Yeah, which what's that tell you? OU hates the 11 o'clock window. I mean, they could have chosen to play that game anytime. And 1:30 is actually a unique time because I can't think of many 1:30 kicks in Norman in the past 5-6 years. They've had a 2:30. They've had some evenings, but the 1:30 is a unique time. I think
there's meaning behind it. A vast majority of kickoffs from 1962 to 1995 were at 1:30. So it's all part of the 100-year anniversary that they are trying to place throughout this season for OU.
And go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to say, yeah, you mentioned the 100-year anniversary and the thought process that went behind the 1:30 times. I mean, think about this, guys. You got that. Everyone's talking about that. You got the move to the SEC. And now you look at some of these other game time windows. I don't think anyone's surprised maybe with that early option for South Carolina. That was one I know we've talked about before, kind of expected. I'm a little bit surprised on the Ole Miss, but you also have to look at maybe some other matchups during that week to maybe see maybe why that one was an early option. But Jay, you mentioned the tailgating. It's definitely going to be easier to tailgate for games later in the day. OU hasn't had many options. Let's be honest. Hasn't had many opportunities in the past at home, at least week in, week out, to really perfect and get that better because 11 o'clock is nearly impossible.
It is. It's hard. I mean, it's good for the ones that can travel there and then get back, but other than that, it's not. And you look at the opening SEC game. I think that's been a game that everybody's talked about. Tennessee. Okay, where that game's going to fall. A lot of people really wanting an evening game for that game, prime time. It is an option. It looks 2:30, 3:30, or 5 to 7. So we'll see on that one. I think that would be really cool for the first SEC game, Oklahoma. To be prime time. I think it'd be pretty awesome. We'll see if that happens. And then looking down the stretch, the last 3 games, all options of being prime time. One of those includes LSU. And I know that's if you're looking to go for a road environment and you want to experience an SEC road environment at night, LSU's your game. And we'll see if that's going to end up being at night or in the afternoon too. I just love all this that you're able to see this now. and not having to wait a lot longer to find out this. At least you got an idea. Now, it's not ideal because you don't know exactly, but you do know how many early kicks you're going to have, and that's 2. That's the most you could have. So it really, I think, helps fans as far as preparing and that sort of thing, and pretty cool. And just already loving being as a fan being in the SEC.
Yeah, I think it even helps the team. I mean, let's be honest, a 6-day window that you were getting in the Big 12, it seemed like on a weekly basis of, oh, is this going to finally be an afternoon or an evening game? And it's another 11 o'clock. I mean, that's difficult because, I mean, teams have to prepare for their whole week of practice is based around what time their game is, because what time do they have to get to the hotel the day before? What time do they have to have all their meetings? What time do they have to load the buses and get to the stadium? So I think that if you ask the team, I think they would be all for the no more 11 a.m. kickoffs. And one thing on the flex options for later kickoffs between 5 to 7, the primetime slot on ABC is 6:30 Central Time. There's no limit this year for how many the SEC can have. SEC is their rights are exclusively to ABC and ESPN. So that's the big one on ABC. Kirk Herbstreit and Chris Fowler. There's a possibility for OU to have quite a few of them, and I think you're going to see on a weekly basis of the SEC having way more of those primetime games than any other conference.
Yeah. Is there one that stands out, Jay, where you say that's one I want in prime time? You already mentioned one.
Well,
I mean, from a fan's perspective, you want LSU, Death Valley, prime time.
Well, there's 2 specifically that I've looked at, and it's 2 home games. It's Tennessee and Alabama. Both have an option to be the late game, or they both could be the afternoon game. I would love, personally, I love evening games at the Palace. I just do. Night, lights on. I think SEC, big opponents, I want to be it under the lights. That's just as a fan, okay? Just as a fan speaking. So those are 2 games I would love to see at night. Now, Missouri, that's another option. I mean, that could be a late game. It could be early afternoon, 2:30. Just like we said, every game's that option except those 2. So I think if you look at it, and if I had to guess overall, you're going to have a spattering of evening games and a spattering of 2:30 games. I think it'll probably be mixed pretty evenly between those. What is it? 5? I think 5 games in that option of those 2 windows. I think it'll be pretty close. 2 one way, 3 the other. I don't think you'll see 4 or 5 all at night or 4 or 5 all in the afternoon, personally.
I think it would be, like you're saying, a combination, probably 2, maybe 3. I mean, you look at that November slate of Missouri, Alabama, LSU. If OU is, say, undefeated or 1 loss at that point in time, it's hard to not line them up with 3 primetime games on ABC. But the one for a road game that I think is most ideal is Missouri. Primetime game against Missouri, renewed rivalry. I mean, you see all the stuff going on Twitter between these 2 fan bases. The coaches are now getting involved in it. A night game in Columbia would be quite the sight to see.
Yeah, and here's what we know. Even though we don't know official times yet, like you said earlier, guys, the planning can begin. The planning, the road trip planning, the home game planning can begin because you are at least aware of some of it. And here's the deal. It highlights even more how much better the SEC is, guys. The fact that they're doing this so far ahead of time, it's great. Get your plans ready. Get your calendars out. Start making plans as football season is around the corner. And one thing you need to make sure you're planning to do, joining us here at the Sooner Surge by subscribing to our channel. We thank you guys. We'll see you next time. Boomer.